This one event could cause a total crypto apocalypse. And as technology rapidly advances and the next major threat to crypto is quantum computing, according to one researcher from Google, hacking Bitcoin is going to be far easier than initially thought. And a single hack on Bitcoin would not only create panic, but a widespread loss of faith in crypto markets and in blockchain technology. Now, right now, Bitcoin runs on thousands of computers worldwide and is considered one of the most secure networks on the planet when it comes to money. But according to this researcher, hacking upwards of 25% of Bitcoin wallets may require 20 times fewer resources than previously thought. And if that's what we currently think right now, then as technology and the landscape continue to evolve and AI becomes more efficient, quantum computers could probably do it to the tune of hundreds of times more efficiently with far fewer resources, which would truly wreck the market. So what would this mean for your XRP bags and crypto portfolio? This is truly groundbreaking news, but is it a cause for panic? How soon would something like this occur? And should this be a reason to start heading over into cash or de-risking? Well, we'll discuss that in this video and the actual security of Bitcoin, as well as the odds and time frame in which it could occur. And really quickly, if you haven't done so already, head on over to the Bull Runners HQ on Twitter or X and check out the pinned post to enter for our $100 worth of XRP weekly giveaway. This last week we had a new winner, and every single week we will announce one winner who follows through with these 3 steps. First, you have to follow the Bull Runners HQ, then you have to like, retweet, and comment XRP on this pinned post. So you have to do all 3 of those things. And then finally, the third step would be to subscribe to our daily crypto newsletter, bullrunners.com/altcoin secrets. And you can actually find that over at bullrunners.com anyways. Get this ebook to unlock the 23 secrets to becoming a crypto millionaire. There is so much free value, and also you will be entered to potentially win $100 worth of XRP every single week. We do make sure that everyone follows all the steps, and as you can see, there are 36 likes, but only 26 reposts and 26 comments. This means these are the people that are eligible, but that doesn't mean they've also followed through all of the steps. So you have to do all of the steps in order to qualify, and we do verify, and it is completely random. So go ahead and do that by going to Bull Runners HQ over on Twitter. And as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners YouTube channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. Directly from the Coin Bureau, they are sharing the fact that Bitcoin is essentially not quantum proof. In other words, major systems like quantum computers, usually from big players. However, in the future, it's likely going to be from adversarial governments, because at the end of the day, very few companies can actually build a solid quantum computer. However, one Google researcher did share that in a study, it shows now it takes far fewer qubits to break RSI encryption, which is used in some crypto wallets. In other words, not the entire Bitcoin network would be hacked. However, if a single big Bitcoin wallet was hacked using a quantum computer, this would send shockwaves through the entire crypto world. Bitcoin would sell off to lows and percentages we've probably never seen before. And yes, the entire crypto market would follow. That would include XRP. So just the fact that Bitcoin is not quantum proof is actually quite scary news. But just how scared should you be? Should you be selling? Considering even the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, in their latest iShares Bitcoin Trust filing, did mention the fact that quantum tech could undermine the viability of Bitcoin's cryptographic systems. And in their actual post or article that they shared, they said if quantum computing is able to advance in that way, there is a risk that quantum computing could result in the cryptography underlying the Bitcoin network becoming ineffective, which, if realized, could compromise the security of the Bitcoin network or allow a malicious actor to compromise the wallets holding Bitcoin owned by the trust or others on the Bitcoin network, which would result in losses to shareholders. So the fact that they're even having to share this means this is a very real reality. It's just the question is how far into the future, and will this actually affect the price action into the near term or even through the rest of this bull market? Now, without getting terribly technical here, at the end of the day, this is all this means. Bitcoin security relies on elliptic curve cryptography, which apparently can be cracked by quantum computers running a Shor's algorithm. But the reality is they're testing how urgent the threat is. And just so we actually understand the security behind Bitcoin's network, it's actually quite impressive, which really leads me to believe that the leaps and bounds we're making in technological advances and quantum computing are even more so. Let's have a watch of a short video that talks about the SHA-256 security that Bitcoin has in place.
In the main video on cryptocurrencies, I made two references to situations where, in order to break a given piece of security, you would have to guess a specific string of 256 bits. One of these was in the context of digital signatures, and the other in the context of a cryptographic hash function. For example, if you want to find a message whose SHA-256 hash is some specific string of 256 bits, you have no better method than to just guess and check random messages. And this would require, on average, 2 to the 256 guesses. Now, this is a number so far removed from anything that we ever deal with that it can be hard to appreciate its size. But let's give it a try. 2 to the 256 is the same as 2 to the 32 multiplied by itself 8 times. Now, what's nice about that split is that 2 to the 32 is 4 billion, which is at least a number we can think about, right? It's the kind of thing you might see in a headline. So all we need to do is appreciate what multiplying 4 billion times itself 8 successive times really feels like. As many of you know, the GPU on your computer can let you run a whole bunch of computations in parallel incredibly quickly. So if you were to specially program a GPU to run a cryptographic hash function over and over, a really good one might be able to do a little less than 1 billion hashes per second. And let's say that you just take a bunch of those and cram your computer full of extra GPUs so that your computer can run 4 billion hashes per second. So the first 4 billion here is going to represent the number of hashes per second per computer. Now, picture 4 billion of these GPU-packed computers. For comparison, even though Google does not at all make their number of servers public, estimates have it somewhere in the single-digit millions. In reality, most of those servers are going to be much less powerful than our imagined GPU-packed machine. But let's say that Google replaced all of its millions of servers with a machine like this, then 4 billion machines would mean about 1,000 copies of this souped-up Google. Let's call that 1 kilogoogle worth of computing power. There's about 7.3 billion people on Earth. So next, imagine giving a little over half of every individual on Earth their own personal kilogoogle. Now, imagine 4 billion copies of this Earth. For comparison, the Milky Way has somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. We don't really know, but the estimates tend to be in that range. So this would be akin to a full 1% of every star in the galaxy having a copy of Earth, where half the people on that Earth have their own personal kilogoogle. Next, try to imagine 4 billion copies of the Milky Way. And we're going to call this your gigagalactic supercomputer, running about 2 to the 160 guesses every second. Now, 4 billion seconds, that's about 126.8 years. 4 billion of those, well, that's 507 billion years, which is about 37 times the age of the universe. So even if you were to have your GPU-packed kilogoogle per person multiplanetary gigagalactic computer guessing numbers for 37 times the age of the universe, it would still only have a 1 in 4 billion chance of finding the correct guess. By the way, the state of Bitcoin hashing these days is that all of the miners put together guess and check at a rate of about 5 billion hashes per second. That corresponds to 1/3 of what I just described as a kilogoogle. This is not because there are actually billions of GPU-packed machines out there, but because miners actually use something that's about 1,000 times better than a GPU: application-specific integrated circuits. These are pieces of hardware specifically designed for Bitcoin mining, for running a bunch of SHA-256 hashes, and nothing else. Turns out, there's a lot of efficiency gains to be had when you throw out the need for general computation and design your integrated circuits for one and only one task.
So now that you have a good feel for just how crazy the security is on SHA-256, This also speaks volumes to the degree at which technology and quantum computing are advancing and in specific directions, similar to that ASIC mining chip designed only for the application of mining Bitcoin. Well, in the case of this scenario, I did have to do a lot of digging and see when something like this would potentially be even possible. And experts are estimating between 10 and 20 years, in other words, by 2035 or 2045 for such a machine in order for it to be deployed. And this would arguably give developers enough time to implement quantum resistant cryptography or even just do a hard fork to potentially mitigate the threat. So at the end of the day, something like this is still relatively unlikely. It's just the news at the fact that it would be 20 times easier is what got people's ears perked up. But the way I like to view it is I just look at the price on Bitcoin. And as you can see right now, everyone who's invested in Bitcoin and knows probably more than you and I do are in the right rooms, are the major institutional investors. If they were truly worried, they'd be selling Bitcoin like crazy. And that's actually not what's happening. If anything, we've seen a little bit of a breakdown here on May 23rd. And since that point in time, we've been consistently supported and getting higher highs and higher lows on the price action on a daily time frame. This is actually reflected over on XRP, just holding its range pretty strongly. And although, yes, it is below the 10 and 20 EMA, it's holding a pretty strong support at prior supports of like $2.30. So as long as we stay here to around the $2.15 range, I'm still pretty happy to accumulate something like XRP into a breakout above 260. That's where I'll be a fan. Either way, this seems to be completely real, but also very much FUD. And we have a lot of time left in this bull market. And that is being proven directly on the price action. The price action is king. And so I like to use any negative news as a point of reference. If the negative news is not moving the market in the direction you think it would, in this case down, then guess what? That means that there is underlying strength, or real big investors who are very knowledgeable know that it's likely something that they don't have to worry about yet, which leads them to hold or buy into their crypto positions. And so that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also head on over to altcoinpro.com. This is your one-stop shop to becoming a crypto millionaire in terms of the right tools, training, resources. We have a team of analysts and researchers that are professional that share all sorts of things like altcoin picks, classes and courses, live calls with experts. You can get all of your questions answered, and everyone here is actually paying to be here, which means they're taking their crypto journey very seriously. This is bar none one of the best communities in the space. There's tons of alpha constantly. Just the DeFi yields alone, which we call our quick win DeFi yields, should pay for the cost of this membership every single month, which is only $97 a month. And to prove it to you, our analysts shared this just a day ago. The fact that you could hold Bitcoin and US dollars in one of our yield farms with upwards of like $3,500 and earn about 35% APR or yield yearly. In other words, this yield alone on a $3,500 buy and hold strategy, which is relatively safe, and arguably all the things that we share are really safe, although nothing is perfect in crypto, right? Even centralized exchanges face their vulnerabilities. We try to share the best of the best, and this yield alone pays for the membership if you put at least $3,500 or hold $3,500 worth of Bitcoin and US dollars. Essentially, this makes your membership and ride free, and everything else is fair game. And that includes the courses and classes on technical analysis. And every single Tuesday, including today, I'm going to be hosting technical analysis calls where I teach you everything you need to know about the charts, how to pull up the right crypto pairs, to common indicators, to trading strategies, and you name it. This is stuff that we simply cannot cover on the channel. So that said, go ahead and go to altcoinpro.com to check that out. Take advantage of that DeFi yield pick. See if it actually works for you. And if in 14 days you aren't earning anything on any of the opportunities that we share, then go ahead and ask for a refund. But I'm highly confident you won't want to do that because the value is some of the best in the game, and we stand by that. Thanks so much for watching the video, my friend. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.